to rebel. We are 90 minutes away from the world premiere of Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
Urso. Got Felicity Jones leading this rebel strike force. She's very different from Rey and very different from Luke even. She's not this sort of wide-eyed innocent who's thirsting for adventure. Is that your film?
No, honestly, what I feel all the time is it's George's film. Like, basically everything in that movie that's any good, that people love, is probably somehow from George Lucas in some way.
Information that Darth Vader is
Well, at the end of the day, people aren't shouting at me across the street saying I ruined their childhood, so...
So, everyone seems to have a soft spot for Rogue One, except me, because I am different. I am a translucent baby Yoda that's gonna get sued one day for identity theft, but you know what they say, if you can beat 'em, join 'em, right? So, let me unpack my sacred text, hang midair, clap my ears, and participate in my favorite activity of it all, completely unpromptedly reviving the dead space horses to beat them even further. Rogue One, of course, is no horse, but thankfully ponies still do. This film holds a very prestigious and celebrated position of the best Star Wars movie Disney has produced. Yet. That achievement sounds much less luxurious when you remember its only competition happens to be just, 3 of the worst movies you'll ever see. Rogue One was and is as easy to love because it didn't mess with an established beloved saga. Not because of anything it did or didn't do, but just by design of not being a part of the said saga. It didn't have a capacity of butchering or wasting any of the legacy characters simply because it included none. It couldn't waste its heritage since it had none, and it could not possibly damage the continuation or the future potential of the lore simply because all of it was already written and set in stone. Hence, we could and can appreciate the things it does right while closing our eyes on things it doesn't, because differently from sequels, there are no permanent consequences of its mishaps. Literally. That single simple fact makes its flaws and weaknesses appear much less prominent despite being just as frequent and present. And oh, they are frequent and present. Basically, the way Rogue One gets to be crowned for simply not being the worst thing ever made is like me receiving a Nobel Peace Prize for not inventing an atomic bomb. You're all welcome, by the way. Talking about super boo-boo weapons, this film is about one, except it isn't, because in order to get to that part of this story, we need to get to the guy, to get to the guy, to get to the guy, to get to the message, to get to the guy. But you won't hear that being mentioned often, because we all collectively decided to gaslight ourselves into believing that Rogue One is a 30-minute short. Basically, most of the film is about a terribly paced, human-based scavenger hunt that is only made tolerable by our own nostalgia, without the added anticipation and the awareness of the upcoming third act, that by itself is completely inspired by our meta-knowledge of Star Wars. Rogue One is just as messy and lost as any other Disney Star Wars property. Rogue One suffers from the exact same character, exposition, and writing problems as The Force Awakens, arguably even worse. Actually, criticizing these movies back to back is kind of uncanny because all criticisms are basically interchangeable. The only reason I even remember that our protagonist's name is Janine Erso is because her introduction scene is an equivalent of the film taking her ID card and hurling it straight at my head.
Imagine if the Imperial authorities had found out who you really were, Jyn Erso.
That is your given name, is it not? Jyn Erso, daughter of Galen Erso, a known Imperial collaborator in weapons development.
Which they might as well have, because where the f did that scar come from? I swear, every time a character appears on screen, you bet Tarkin's pretty glassy CGI ass every single piece of crucial information about them or the plot will be verbally vomited straight into your mailbox in the span of the next 30 seconds.
He tends to say whatever comes into his circuits. It's a byproduct of the reprogram.
It's highly comical to watch these actors attempt to act anywhere close to human-esque, while also delivering such dense lines that make the Death Star seem like a fucking balloon.
Possession of unsanctioned weapons, forgery of Imperial documents, aggravated assault, escape from custody, resisting arrest.
Maybe that is why the best character of the movie ends up being a literal fucking droid. Hey, he may be an exposition tool, but at least he's a self-aware exposition tool.
I'm a reprogrammed Imperial droid.
Thank Forrest he said it. I would never have guessed from the Imperial logo stamped on his shoulder that is bigger than my face. Right after we get introduced to Jane, we're told that rebels want to capture her father, who happens to be the builder of the super boob weapon. Which is smart, right? They don't know how to destroy the thing, and they're gonna get the guy who built it and interrogate him about it. Except no, the very next scene, the movie pulls us to the side and says, and I quote,
"Forget what you heard in there. There will be no extraction. You find him, you kill him."
If you actually listen closely to the scene, and I'm not kidding, they actually play dun 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 on in the background as if they didn't simply reveal the information that debunked one we just learned a minute ago. We don't care. The movie just started. I also love how his mouth does not move at all during this entire shot, or the next one. Well, joke's on me for assuming rebels were smart, I guess. This is so Rian Johnson-esque of them. Look, we've subverted your expectations. The plot twist is that our heroes are actually very fucking stupid. Cause in what world is a corpse more effective resource in comparison to a direct information source with an actual verbal ability to spell out all the ways you can destroy just the worst thing made in, like, I don't know, ever? And no, I know, before you guys hit me with the, oh, they wanted to slow down the building of the weapon. Well, prison is just as effective at detaining people as killing them is, so yeah, they're fucking stupid, I don't know. Additionally, what a waste of a scene and an opportunity, both emotionally and storytelling-wise. There is no necessity to so forcefully shove such crucial piece of information down our throats so early in the story. It would be so much more impactful for the viewers to figure out the actual plan real time along with our main character. Luckily, the scene of her finding out also happens to be one of my favorites. As instructed, stupidly, Andor, secretly from everybody else, goes out to kill Galen Erso. And how the rest of the crew learns that very specific information is, the blind one goes,
Does he look like a killer?
What are you talking about?
Captain Andor.
Why do you ask that? What do you mean, does he look like a killer?
Force moves darkly near a creature that's about to
kill? Even the actor looks like they had to force that sentence out of him. I swear to Papa Pedro, I have never been more tempted to take my cursor, reposition it at exactly 2:04:09 mark, and click the shit out of it so hard I break my fucking mouse. But the writers decided to spare me from a dreadful misfortune of actually enjoying the film by following that up with a remark from K2SO. His weapon was in sniper configuration. And I particularly love that line because are you telling me this not at all obvious sniper rifle everyone saw the guy take with him was in sniper configuration? Because obviously not every weapon is evil. Some sniper rifles are actually very good fellas who are lost to the evil forces of sniper configuration. Because of course when people take guns to places, it's usually because they want defeated ice cream. Or maybe I've been doing it wrong this whole time. I just find it funny how this film plays it off as this huge, pivotal, dramatic moment of revelation for Jane that Andor is about to kill her father, when in reality this piece of metal might as well be pointing at a sky and calling it blue. I don't know, I can't really quote the entire movie, you have to go and see it for yourself. And I understand, it's easy to think of Rogue One and assume the third act. In isolation, it's great, it's almost perfect, but you have to understand, Rogue One is 3 times that. The film has to fill in the gaps somehow, but the problem is it fails to do so, so it just covers them with a big ass ugly cardboard I like to call Janine. Remember when I mentioned that Kylo is the first ever Nepo character? Cut the dick off, take off the clown costume, and you have Jamie Erso. The only thing making her relevant or somewhat interesting is her father being the builder of the Imperial superweapon. She's the guy who will get the guy who will get the guy who will get the message and get the guy that happens to be her father. More than half of the film, she just passively drifts through the plot, so much so you could replace her with a floaty and no one would notice. She has no distinct personality, skills, or competence to make her stand out or justify her protagonistness outside of simply and exclusively being plot's sugar baby.
I'm Jyn Erso, daughter of Galen and Lyra.
She just does not come off as a main character as much as a captive of the film. She just can't be bothered to have any kind of presence whatsoever. Just flare those pretty nostrils and we're good to go. What is making this lackluster attempt at a character writing so much more pathetic is the film's attempt to give her a troublemaker badass reputation that she is this apolitical, nihilistic, atheist, anti-establishment felon who resents rebels and has irreversible trust issues and no loyalties. And the next thing we know, she's acting like a Star Warsian Gandhi, spewing sentiments and monologuing about hope and force and survival and importance of rebellion and resilience and doing the right thing.
May the Force be with us.
And mind you, she does all of this monologuing right after learning that those same rebels planned and succeeded an assassination attempt on her father while including her in the mission without her knowledge or permission. It's a widely accepted knowledge that a way to a girl's heart that already despises your ass and whom you have to blackmail into doing anything for you is to blow up her family member.
You're asking us to invade an Imperial installation based on nothing but hope.
Rebellions are built on hope.
I know her papa's permanently offline, and she may want to succeed his cause or whatever, but can we just stop this trend of my daddy died, so now I'm allowed and justified to do 180.5 on my entire life, worldview, and principles, because no matter how bad the script pretends otherwise, I am an unprincipled hack with no integrity or personality, and I am gonna speedrun my redemption arc thing. This is Cassian Andor. He's so boring and purposeless in this movie, even being played by a charismatic Latino man can't save him, and this is Star Wars we're talking about. Not only is that unheard of, but also considered a hate crime in my book. The single most actually very interesting thing about Andor is the very first thing he does in this movie, which is killing an innocent informer because the guy's hand has a boo-boo, which would most likely get him captured by the evil people, and we don't want that. What a freaking badass. But don't you worry, he is cured from being a complex character quite quickly too, because suddenly this guy, the same guy, in a span of a day, develops a knack for having a clear conscience and just chooses not to shoot seemingly the most important guy of all guys to shoot. Literally for no reason other than the plot not wanting him to. Which obviously makes so much sense, because it's not like the movie went out of its way to establish him as a cold-hearted anti-hero that will kill anything that comes anywhere near to being an inconvenience, no matter how vulnerable or innocent. Okay, he feels bad. What did the other guy do to you then? So I was so confused by this, I went out of my way to research it in case there was something I was missing, and even his wiki is unsure why exactly he made that decision. You can't make this up. Also, my other favorite thing about this scene is that Andor could have easily killed off the villain of this film, but didn't, because the movie forgot he could. Even if he didn't know who Krennic was specifically, you'd assume just based off of his outfit, security level, and decorations, Captain Cassian Andor, Rebel Intelligence, would clearly be able to tell the guy was a pretty high-ranking one without the additional info about his occupation or name. But hey, that would make Rebels seem actually competent, and we can't have that. Meet K2SO, our new favorite droid, for like the next 5 minutes before the next one drops. But yeah, he's funny, so me, I guess. But he's not cute enough to be a plushie, so him back. This is Groot, and this is Rocket. Am I calling them that because that's funny, or because I literally have no idea what their names are? We will never know, just like their name. No, you don't get more information simply because there's no more information to give. By the way, did you know that if you blow up a semi-integral component of a thing, most things do go boom? Usually we don't really have to explain that to people, but this is Kathleen Kennedy we're talking about. She isn't people. And wait until she finds out that most CPUs or power supplies or even power cables don't have to come with weaknesses built into them, because they are the weaknesses. If you want to blow up an atomic planet-sized boo-boo sphere, the only thing you need is to have plans and mappings to find out where the vital parts are located exactly and shoot them. You don't really need to invent a whole-ass character whose sole purpose in the story is to contribute a PowerPoint presentation with a bunch of arrows pointing to a single electric cord with big bold all-cap red letters saying, "This is where you should aim, bitches!" And for all we know, that's the only thing that Galen Erso's contrived existence adds to the lore. Yet another Imperial daddy is here to save the day last minute by doing all the doing and thinking for our main heroes. You know, as it happens suspiciously way too all the time in this universe. Like, what do you mean he put a weakness into the reactor core? Did he build a water tank that rebels should pierce and flood the system to go boom? Wouldn't just blowing up one of the core elements of the mechanism do the job? Which is exactly the logic the first trilogy established, proving our heroes to be intelligent and proactive. But no, we can't have that. We need rebels to come across as irredeemable idiots so that Jin can Gandhi, I guess. They're gonna sit on their asses and wait to be lasered out from existence while hunting for a single guy. Additionally, if Galen wanted to destroy this emosphere so bad, and was in fact very much proven to be able to build in weaknesses into it undetected, couldn't he just design a flaw that would destroy the weapon all on its own? Knowing what we know, there's no logical way he couldn't have snuck a single leak into the planet-sized weapon, which would eventually, over a specific amount of time, destabilize it. Or is getting people killed part a mandatory prerequisite of boo-boo weapon destroying rituals? But, of course, I can't make this video and not talk about the third act. I complimented The Force Awakens. I'm not making a Rogue One video just to shit on it. I promise. The third act is good. I think it is extremely important to highlight the fact that this might be one of the last, not just Star Wars, but Disney projects that prioritized its graphics, visuals, and behind-the-scenes artists. It's insane how pretty this third act looks. This is the closest we have ever gotten and might ever get to experiencing Star Wars accurately in this modern age. It also feels like the very last time a major blockbuster put in the efforts to celebrate its artists through marketing and promotion. Behind the scenes work of this movie was all over its marketing materials, turning the artist's efforts into the selling point of the project. Deservedly so. Which makes sense, because you can feel the CGI and VFX artists were not abused, blackmailed, or rushed into doing their jobs. You can sense the effort, time, and passion that went into crafting these visuals, as well as you can smell that this probably never ever happened ever again. However, that seems to be the only good thing to come out of the post-production of this film. For that same reason, writing this script feels like trying to perform an autopsy on a corpse only to discover that it has already been embalmed. Trying to examine something so pretty on surface, you crack it open in rush and excitement only to find something so goddamn hollow. It makes me wish I let things be at times and step back to bask in the simplicity of ignorance. However, now that I have dissected this movie through a microscope, I can confidently diagnose it with zombieism. This movie has been so obviously cut and stitched back together so many times, the only thing you're left with is to admire how operational it seems, despite it all. Remember this notorious Jen shot from the trailers where she's dressed like an Imperial soldier and people keep asking why they cut that badass plotline out? I have a better question. Where is the film displayed in the entirety of this teaser trailer? Because that film seems to be as translucent as I am. Rogue One has been reshaped and messed with through reshoots and rewrites, so much so that the hints of the messy reconstructive job done is all over the film. Remember the scene with the rebel guy being severely overdubbed in post? I don't believe that plotline of Cassian being tasked with assassination even existed in its current form at the time of shooting those scenes, which basically calls into question literally everything else that goes down in the first two acts. The universal appeal of the third act basically salvages the story and gives an illusion that we have been going somewhere this whole time, and that somewhere appears to be pretty neat, so why complain? A thing you might have noticed with this video, differently from other Star Wars projects of mine, is the lack of a villain, and I don't mean in universe. Rogue One seems like such a post-production mess that I can't confidently shit on Gareth, the director guy, because I have no idea how much of it was due to his contribution, if any of it at all. There are interviews out there where he keeps being asked to elaborate on the messiness of this project, and it's pretty obvious the guy has some stories of his own to tell, but he keeps cutting it short, saying he's just grateful for the experience. Imagine having that kind of emotional intelligence and media training. These other bitches could never. But Gareth, you did well with what you were given, and you know what? Out of all Disney Star Wars movies, I do not recommend watching this one the least.